Welcome to the third introductory video on the Harvest Arena. In this video, we'll cover some pointers and examples you can have a look at before you log on and test. It's important to keep your eye on the ball. The results will be shown by the KPIs, production goals fulfilled, ground damage, average relocation, and capacity utilization. Typically, the most difficult is achieving your production goals within the given margin. So, as a bit of help, we offered a 5-point focus. Number 1, focusing on fulfilling production goals. 2, avoiding ground damage. 3, effective relocation, before we consider the transport perspective. And finally, before starting, you can allocate your harvesting capacity to the right areas. Point number 1, fulfilling production goals. Please note the size of the orders. The biggest orders are Levanger, prime pulpwood, stain shad, saw logs. Start with the big orders. Second pointer for fulfilling production goals. There's 1,100 harvesting sites. You should know your wood. Here we see the distribution of cubic meters per site. Many small sites, a few large, typically varying between 4 to 5 days per harvesting site. Saw log proportion varies between 40 and 60%, and production rates between 110 and 170 cubic meters per day. Given that you're keeping the big orders in mind, you can then vary your filter and watch the map to see which sites are available. You can have a wide interval or a small interval. Vary this, and you can see how far it is to the next site and if there's any good clusters for effective relocation. Pointer number 2, avoiding risk for ground damage. It's all about watching the weather and thinking ahead. The key question is, how far ahead can you plan? This depends on the season. During stable periods, for example, midwinter, midsummer, you can plan up to 4 weeks. In less predictable periods, such as the spring thaw or fall rain, you should stay below 2 weeks. After this, it's just a question of you save for a gamble, but remember, always save your best sites until you need them. Pointer number 3 is about effective relocation and when you can make a long move. Clustering gives you reduced relocation kilometers per 1,000 cubic meters. Here you see some clusters for summer harvesting sites for normal weather, clusters of winter harvesting sites, as well as clusters with spring harvesting sites, and clusters for wet weather. In terms of weather types, if you expect stable weather, you can take clusters with the same bearing capacity. However, if you're unsure about the weather, you can have a mixed bearing capacity in the cluster. So far, we've only been considering harvesting production, which is half the battle. However, now it's time to rethink from a transport perspective. Typically, the chosen mill destination for harvesting site is also based on the transport costs from forest industry. On the right, we see an example plan of sawmill destinations, which minimizes the sum transport costs for all mills. Here we're considering Namsos in the north, Steinkjer, and Verdal in the south. So we see the municipalities which, based on transport costs, should be destined for Namsos. Also in the south, the municipalities based on transport costs should be destined for Verdal. And between them, we see the municipalities which should be destined for Steenshad. In this case, the optimal solution expresses a deficit of wood in the north, where you see that we're pulling wood from the south up to the northern mills. Taking a transport perspective also takes into consideration bearing capacity for both harvesting and hauling. So in addition to our terrain bearing capacity classes, we also have bearing capacity classes for the roads. You'll see the typically public roads with a higher bearing capacity. They have an orange perimeter around them, and the harvesting sites with forest roads, which often are more varying in bearing capacity, they have a green perimeter. And on the right hand, you'll see some typical combinations, how you can take into consideration hauling and weather for stable conditions, autumn conditions, late winter, and spring thaw. The fifth and final pointer is about allocating your harvest capacity to your preferred areas. Please note, relocation distances are tracked from the first harvesting site, so you can relocate your team capacity before starting. 3 moments you should consider: where are your main customers, where is your wood concentrated, and which weather are you expecting during the planning period. All that's left now is to log on and test the Harvest Arena. Log on first via player, new player, to your instructor's game with your name and password. Good luck with trading in the Harvest Arena. Remember, think ahead and stay sharp.